have to cover what's happening and what has happened in Israel. That is something we got to cover. So I don't know if you guys have heard this, but look at what Garland Nixon has tweeted out here. Now, we're going to talk about the broader story, but this is a news source. It says Times of Israel says source close to Netanyahu accuses U.S. of funding rallies against judicial overhaul.
It was like, man, you're not supposed to do that against us. Come on, man. What we like, the global South? You're not supposed to fund opposition. And I think like this is the West trying to rein these people in because there has been criticism even coming from the West, from Zionists of Israel, and they're not saying that Israel need to stop their ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. They're not really criticizing the U.S. funding of Israel. They're just saying stuff like the Israel that we know doesn't exist. They have gone too extreme. We still should fund them though. But I'm going to write this brave.
That's Marianne Williamson. That's funny. Yeah. Marianne Williamson has that stance.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I have a lot to say on this.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to a couple of other receipts before we get to that article, because that's actually let me go to my bookmarks where I have all the articles.
Something that's why you look for that. Something that's important to mention, and the reason why Netanyahu can credibly accuse the United States of this is that I want you guys to understand these protests are not like standing up for Palestinian rights. Like obviously, like Netanyahu stripping his court away would make it easier to get away with those crimes. But this court never been good for Palestinians. Like this court has never acknowledged Palestinians. This is more moderate Israelis, like more secular Israelis, looking at the far right government of Israel pretty much doing a power grab, and they say, shit, I don't give a fuck about the Palestinian people, but this shit may hurt my rights. Like, this shit might fuck me up. And so the United States, they don't care about Palestinians. They're like, we need to uphold the status quo of Israel. So I 100% believe, I didn't see that before you brought it up. It's kind of shocking, but I 100% believe
it is.
Because I can see the West wanting to undermine Netanyahu and the fascist government in Israel just because it makes their argument against Putin and China weaker. They've been trying to rein these people in for a while. I did a few segments on how they was like, yo, Israel, chill the fuck out. You're making us look bad with us trying to make Putin as a war criminal. You got Netanyahu going unhinged. So that's my theory. That's interesting. I didn't see that before this, but I just want to provide that context. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, personal story, anecdotal story I have is that there is people there. It's just like here. Like, I mean, do people in other countries think we want our country doing what our government, what they do? And it's sort of the same thing in Israel. Like, don't think that everybody's down for this apartheid. Don't think that everybody's down for what the treatment of that's happening to Palestinians. Not everybody's even down for this being even Israel. Some Israelis think that this should be given back to Palestine. And like I said, the story that I had is that I dated an Israeli, and she left before my wife, of course. She left right before she was to go into the army because it's a draft there. Everybody has to go into the army when you reach a certain age. So she had left, and then what's weird is we started dating, and her parents decided to risk sending her back. So they sent her back because we were dating, and she got arrested. And I never heard from her. Like, I heard from her like a year later by a letter saying
that's crazy.
She got arrested and put in jail for fleeing, like avoiding. I forget the term with the charge, but for like fleeing or something like that. Yeah, being MIA.
Objection.
Oh yeah, and it's people, and she was like, "Yeah, no, we're not for this. Like, people, like what they're doing to Palestinians." At the time, I didn't really understand. I wasn't real political at the time, but
I'm glad you mentioned that. That anecdote actually has weight because younger Israelis are more willing to push back against the established regime. Obviously, they still got a lot of young, like Israeli fascists. I don't want to cover those people up at all, but it's much more prevalent for people who even sympathetic to the two-state solution. people who are sympathetic to the idea of Israel existing, well, they're like, man, yeah, I believe that Israel exists, but man, maybe we shouldn't fucking kill the Palestinians and bulldoze their homes like the way we're doing. So I always want to, and I think most of you guys know, but I always focus my anger at the government and supporters of the government. But we can, I think, anyone acknowledge that there are people uh, that engage in Judaism that call this out, and we cannot allow them to turn this into a religious war. That's a tactic of the Zionists, where the Zionists will say, "Oh, of course, Muslims and Muslim sympathizers will side with Palestinians. Of course, Jews, you have to side with Israel. Christians going to side with Israel." They want to divide like that. I want you guys to understand there is a significant Christian Palestinian community. There's Christians in the Middle East. There are Muslims in the Middle East that is not for the state of Israel. There have been a lot of tensions in the Middle East in these countries, especially with the World Cup. We did this coverage months ago where there was white Caucasian Christians in the Middle East. There was dark-skinned Muslims. There was Jewish people that was calling out the Israeli apartheid. So with the West in the United States and Israel, what they try to do, and they try to turn it about anti-Semitism. If you're against Israel, you're against the Jewish people. You must be siding with the Muslims in the religious war. We must reject that framing. That's my little spiel. Go ahead, CJ, or anyone on the panel.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me bring up the article, and if anybody wanted to talk while I'm bringing it up, go ahead. This is just an article that talks about what Netanyahu was just saying, and Gardner Nixon put up here. So here it is, which is just amazing to me. This is coming out. This is the Times of Israel. Source close to Netanyahu accuses U.S. of funding rally against judicial overhaul. So for those that don't know, let me just give a brief sort of summation. They wanted to do a judicial overhaul where they basically gave all the power to a few people, a handful of people out of the government. And then there was a protest, people pushing back against it. And then, first it was a little bit of soft push back, and then it rolled into people. The largest union, I think, is like 700,000 people. They started to say they're going to go on strike. And it was all this pressure and protest. And you saw one of the things that happened. I'm sorry, one of the, where you can see all the amount of people that were protesting. And then that supposedly sort of forced them to pause, is the way they're calling it, pause this judicial overhaul. And Netanyahu is saying that the United States completely funded this. So PM's, Prime Minister's son, shares Breitbart's claim that State Department funded protest group. Senior official says AG irredeemable audacious, for freezing transfer of Tel Aviv political chief. Now, this was written on the 12th, but let's read. A senior government official traveling in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu entourage on his weekend trip to Italy claimed on Friday, without offering evidence, that the mass protest against the government controversial judicial overhaul was partially funded by the Biden administration. Quote, the protest is financed and organized with millions of dollars, he said. Quote, we are following what is happening. This is a very high-level organization. There is an organized center from which all the demonstrators branch out in an orderly manner, the senior official said. Quote, who finances the transportation, the flags, the staging? It's clear to us, he said. Another member of the premier's entourage confirmed that the senior official was referring to the United States. A similar claim was made last week by pro-Netanyahu pundit, I can't even say that name, Yaakov Bardugo on
Yaakov Bardugo.
There you go, sir. Channel 14 News, an outlet closely allied with the Prime Minister. I don't know if that's what that means. And on Saturday evening, Netanyahu's son shared an article about a report in the far right Washington Free Beacon, revealing that the State Department provided grant money to the Movement for Quality Government, an organization that has been leading the protest against the judicial overhaul. So, very interesting article and what's happening in Israel. Any thoughts, gentlemen?
This remind me of when. Well, I don't remember what country in the Middle East we was funding. We was funding ISIS, and then we was funding Taliban, and we was funding their enemies, and it's funny because seeing how much power that the U.S. have already gave this man, you know, I don't know what their end game here is. Maybe they feel like is the best bet is just to roll the dice and bet on both ends, but I don't know what the end game is here. Maybe getting ready to overthrow him. You never know. But he been good to America. He been good to America and these capitalists. So I don't think I don't see them doing anything too much to him.
Benjamin Netanyahu and the fact that he exists and he's good friends with Kamala Harris. You guys know that? Like Netanyahu, there's all these pictures of them men together. That was one of the things early on during the Trump era where I was like, you guys are not about to get me with the Trump arrangement bullshit. When I know you guys are friends with Benjamin Netanyahu, you guys know what's the worst claim that they have about Donald Trump? What is the most exaggerated, whether it's true or not, claim they have of Trump? They say Donald Trump is a racist, he's an ethno-fascist because his thoughts are about Mexicans, right? What they accuse Trump of being an ethno-fascist is quite literally what Benjamin Netanyahu is. You guys understand?
Yep.
But Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer, good friends with Netanyahu. And if you think that Donald Trump is worse than Benjamin Netanyahu, or if you think that Benjamin Netanyahu, let me rephrase this, because I'll put them on the same tier if I was going to be honest. If you think that Benjamin Netanyahu has the moral high ground over Trump, I'll phrase it that way.
Yes.
You are out of your goddamn mind, and that is the entire liberal establishment. And that was one of the things like you're not gonna convince me to freak out over Trump when I know who the fuck you guys are friends with. I'm friends with Harvey Weinstein and Benjamin Netanyahu, and Bill Clinton friend with Jeffrey Epstein. But you guys want to
MBS.
So that's my last contribution.
Katie Porter now friends with Benjamin. It's just
they were like, ICC got arrest warrants over Putin. The fact that you guys don't got arrest warrants on Benjamin Netanyahu completely validates your entire Western philosophy, not just that organization. Your entire philosophy is a sham.
I mean, look how America made the ICC look. America already made the ICC look like exactly what they is. You know, yes, you have great investigations sometimes, but you're weak. What you gonna do against somebody with actual power? And if I was Putin, I wouldn't take that shit serious. I don't even take arrest warrant serious for my own city. You know what I'm saying? If I was Putin, I wouldn't give a damn. Look, George Bush still walking free. Jimmy Carter still walking free. Obama still walking free. Not even just American presidents. You got all these other war criminals and dictators around this damn earth. And you want to focus on Putin because he was getting children out of war zones? Like, if we was going to go after Putin for some shit, I'm pretty sure there's some crimes out there that we can call out, but you guys can't because you are just as guilty as his ass.
So I wanted to close out. I purposely wanted to do this last because I wanted us to talk about it before I close out with the informational part of this segment. And it's about 90 seconds. The first 90 seconds of this video, they kind of just explain how massive this is, how historic this was. So let's let this short clip of this. She has an activist on. It's not her talking. So let's let him explain.
Yusuf Munir, these are mass protests unprecedented in the history of the state of Israel. They are protesting the overhaul and weakening of Israel's judiciary. they are not talking about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
Yeah, they should come out for that. You notice how the United States doesn't fund that shit. They funding this one, though.
As Palestinians continue to be killed on the West Bank, if you can talk from your perspective overall, what's happening?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amy. You're absolutely right. The protesters in the streets are focused on what they see as a threat to them, and not really a threat to Palestinians by these legislative reforms which aim to further weaken the court system in Israel. It's important to point out that this is a process that did not start with this government, and that the court system in Israel has been weakened for some time. But with this government, a religious nationalist government, there are many Israelis who see the government's agenda as a major power grab that's attempting to reshape Israeli society in a way that will disadvantage them, which, them being primarily non-religious nationalist Israelis and secular Israelis. And so they are perceiving for the first time a threat, not to the court system, but a threat to the court system that will actually weaken their rights. The rights, of course, of Palestinians have not been upheld, whether Palestinian citizens of Israel or Palestinians living under occupation in the West Bank and Gaza and Jerusalem, have not been upheld by these courts for a very long time. It was not until, though, that these communities in Israel who are protesting today recognized a direct threat to their own rights that they decided to mobilize en masse in this way. And I think this really underscores just how deep the consensus is within Israel about the apartheid system and discrimination against Palestinians. Clearly, Israeli society has always had the capacity, we're seeing it on display now, to challenge their government's policies.
I must pause it there so that we can reflect on the Black and how the Black Israeli struggle is very similar. And to his point there, I feel the same way. Like, if there was something challenging white people's privilege, they'll be out in the street in a heartbeat.
Like,
so I feel very similar to that. But we can close here. Go ahead. Last word. Go ahead.
It's crazy how Black people get left out of so many things. You know what I'm saying? Like, even with FDR, we get left out of new deals and all kind of shit. And it's the same. It's the same fight across the world. Same fight, same shit going on, man. This is why I'm like, man, if we don't change this, if we don't change the whole system, then nothing's gonna change. Like, we can't just be selfish with this shit. We got to think about all the struggles that everybody is going through. Just because they might not look like me and you, that don't mean that they're not going through the same shit. You know what I'm saying? They are going through the same shit our people had to go through, man. Our ancestors had to go through. You know, now we have the privilege of sitting here and talking about the things, but they're still going through it. And we got to end this shit for good. It has to end.